Big pharma profits are plummeting because the pandemic's over. How are the establishment going to tackle this paradox? Hello there, you 5.9 million awakening wonders. Thank you for joining me on this voyage towards truth, a deep truth that's already within you, expressing itself through your physical being and your psychic state, and it's going to require great work for us to reform society on the basis of these individual awakenings, but we'll try our best here on this channel. We've certainly got some great things to tell you. Firstly, subscribe right now. Secondly, turn on the notification bell. Thirdly, do you know you can watch these videos a bit earlier on Rumble? And stay with us because I'm going to make an announcement in this video that's going to knock your little socks right off. But first, let me tell you what's going on in the wonderful world of big pharma and establishment politics. First, we know, don't we, that Joe Biden says the pandemic is over.
Is the pandemic over?
The pandemic is over.
Hold on, Pfizer are on the phone. Shit, no, there is a pandemic. There is a pandemic. They're in a difficult situation because to determine whether or not there's a pandemic, of course, there must be criteria that are easily measurable and thresholds that have to be crossed and deaths and infection rates and all manner of statistical data that apparently ought be objective, but is seemingly somewhat amorphous. And now we're in a position where Joe Biden and the Democrat Party know they're approaching the midterms and therefore need to present a certain narrative of, you know, an upward trajectory in American political life broadly. But guess what? The Democrat Party, like the Republican Party, is significantly funded by Big Pharma. You know, when they spend all that money on lobbying, that's not for nothing. It's not like that's a laugh to do. I just enjoy this movement of the wrist. It's because it has an impact on the political discourse and the decisions that are made in politics. Some might argue, I might argue, more impact than your pipsqueak vote. Let's have a look at this story in more detail. Investors wiped more than $10 billion off the market value of the main COVID-19 vaccine makers on Monday after US President Joe Biden said the pandemic is over. Shares in Moderna, BioNTech and Novavax fell as much as 9%, while Pfizer fell as much as 2% in early trading in New York. Isn't it extraordinary? Those of you that know more about finance and the markets than I do will be able to illustrate the relationship between a political announcement and confidence in the markets. I've always been fascinated by the fact that the markets are kind of a reflection of things like confidence and I'm feeling great today. Those pork bellies are worth a fortune. Man, I hate pork bellies. Yeah, get rid of them. Get rid of them. And now we're in a situation where the president, for his own reasons, and, you know, let's give him the benefit of the doubt, perhaps because it's true, has said that the pandemic is over. Well, that has a political and economic impact that now has to be assessed. In February, Pfizer forecasted $100 billion in sales for 2022, fueled by the COVID-19 vaccine and pill. We're not like reductive nitwits over here on our channel. We're not like, hey man, they're doing that whole pandemic just to make money. But if very powerful interests benefit from a situation, those interests are obviously going to influence the outcome. That's sort of just plain. That's how systems work. Systems work in order to create certain outcomes, and they, of course, prioritize their own benefit. That's not the same as saying, oh, the whole thing's a con. It's like, I'm not saying any of those kind of things, but it's pretty clear that for Pfizer, the pandemic was a good thing. It's also clear that Pfizer have power and influence. So what do you think that does to the trajectory of American political life? What do you think that does when people are making decisions? Now we're in a position where it's no longer such a priority to take recommended medicines, for example. So that gives Pfizer a challenge. The Food and Drug Administration, the FDA, this month authorized updated COVID-19 booster shots, specifically targeting a subvariant of Omicron. I'm starting to think they're like Pokemon cards. Do you know what I mean? Like, oh, there's this new type though. In a sense, there's always been a fusion of medicine and marketing. When you have profit as part of the pharmaceutical industry, then marketing becomes a part of it. You don't need me to tell you what happened in that opioid crisis in America, how irresponsible, negligent and corrupt it's been proven in and out of court, how corrupt that situation was, how many people unnecessarily died, how the medical industry was corrupted, how family physicians were prescribing drugs irresponsibly. All of that can be taken as read. But now, Big Pharma is confronted with a marketing challenge. The pharmaceutical industry finances about 75% of the FDA's drug division. So the people that have endorsed this new vaccine are funded by the people that make vaccines. Okay, we're going to give you some money to do your endorsing with. Okay, anything you need endorsing? Yeah, these drugs. Oh, okay, well, should we check if they're good? Yeah, check if they're good. But obviously, we're not going to be able to fund you if you don't keep endorsing these drugs. That's where the money comes from. Oh, so you'd like me to stamp this with the old endorse stamp? If you could, if you want some money. Well, we need it. So, endorsed. There, nothing to worry about. Pfizer presented preliminary findings in 8 mice, or mouses as some say, given BA4 and BA5 vaccines. Some people think that's not enough mouses to do tests on, is it? 8. How can we be sure that this vaccine works? Well, talk to these 8 mice. What about that mouse? Oh, no, yeah, he doesn't look very well.
It's just bad cheese, man. I can quit anytime I want.
Shut up! In June, the CDC vigorously recommended mRNA COVID vaccines for 20 million children under 5 years age. Vigorously! This is despite using a free-dose vaccine in 992 children between the ages of 6 months and 5 years. Pfizer found no statistically significant evidence of vaccine efficacy. So, should we recommend this to 20 million children? You remember who pays for that stamp? It's you, isn't it? So, endorse it? Oh, don't look at the consequences. Are those 8 mouses still okay?
I don't feel too good.
In the subgroup of children aged 6 months to 2 years, the trial found that the vaccine could result in a 99% lower chance of infection, but that they could also have a 370% increased chance of being infected. That's a confusing result. In other words, Pfizer reported a range of vaccine efficacy so wide that no conclusion could be inferred. The range of conclusions was so vast, i.e. it's reducing it by 99% or it's increasing it by 370%. It's so bewildering and beleaguering as a set of results that I suppose you'd probably think, well, what's best for Pfizer? Is it best that this vaccine didn't work or that it does work? Hold on a minute, what do we do at Pfizer again? Oh, God, let me just recap. We make drugs, then we sell them for money. Oh, how do we get them endorsed? Well, we fund this company that endorses drug. Would you like us to endorse it? Well, you know, if you want the money, so should I just stamp? Yeah, it's time to stamp it now. Careful, there's a mouse under there, and if that gets hurt, that's another mouse dead. That's not going to look good on the charts. Would you mind moving over there? Approved! Okay, so this is a serious subject, in spite of me being frivolous and a bit silly and saying mouses instead of mice. But we're going to stop now before answering the question, how dangerous is COVID for children? We're going to answer that in a minute. But before that, I've got some fantastic news. Here is that news. From Wednesday, the 28th of September, that's just in a couple of days' time, we will be streaming live on Rumble 5 days a week for 1 hour. 5 o'clock if you're in the UK, about 9 o'clock if you're in New York. What time is it in New York and LA? 12 in New York. What time is it in LA? 9 in LA. Every single day we'll be doing these videos that we do all the time. Yes, of course, you're going to get your fantastic YouTube video. It'll still be on YouTube. The podcast will be available everywhere that you get your podcasts. We'll be making these main videos every single day, but we'll be streaming an hour of content, deeper dives into the news, more revelation, great guests, fantastic content. All from this fantastic new studio, backed by wonderful people and ecclesiastical imagery everywhere you look. Whether it's a stained window or a literal pulpit, look, behold the glory of this new era on Rumble. 5 days a week, streaming live, 5, 9, 11, depending where you are in the world. We're going to be bringing you fantastic new content. New takes on the news, stories that the mainstream media simply won't tell you, or stories that the mainstream media will tell you, but they'll tell you badly, pointing out funny stuff, pointing out corporate corruption everywhere, bringing to the forefront spiritual stories that can unite us, giving you new insights. And because we're streaming live, you can continually contribute. Your comments, your insight, your input is what's going to fuel us. We've got some fantastic guests that are going to be coming on. We're going to be talking to Elon. We're going to be talking to Bernie. We're going to be talking to Donald. I'll tell you the surnames once the bookings are confirmed. But let me know who you want to see on our show. That's from Wednesday, the 28th, 5, 9, 12, all sorts of numbers, depending on where you are in the world. 1 hour every single day. These videos will still be on YouTube, but to see it live and to see it best, join us over on Rumble. Now let's get back to this story. School children under the age of 15 are more likely to be hit by lightning than die from coronavirus. The death rates for 5 to 14-year-olds in England and Wales is 1 in 3.5 million. For under 5s, it's 1 in 1.7 million. Scientists from the universities of Cambridge and Oxford have called for rational debate based on the tiny risks to children. We can't trust them conspiracy theorists over at Cambridge and Oxford sat there in their aluminium hats listening to David Icke and Alex Jones and wondering what QAnon are going to do next. Of course, it's terrible that any children at all die of COVID or any children at all die of anything. But you don't bend a culture to prevent children from being struck by lightning, do you? Some people have sensibly suggested that one conclusion could be to vaccinate the most at-risk children, dealing with that problem, if indeed that's the course of action that you would like to pursue. Any excess concern perhaps is motivated financially. Let me know in the comments below what you think the possible motivation could be. Is it that over at Pfizer, a company that funds the FDA in significant part and relies on the sale of certain medications for profits, and in the last 2 years have had record profits, do you think their primary motivation is, oh my God, we've just got to protect children? Or do you think once in a while the old sign of a dollar bill flickers through their collective consciousness? As of February, 75% of children in the United States had natural immunity from prior infection, and it's been proven that natural immunity is as effective. In January, the CDC released data from New York and California which demonstrated natural immunity was 2.8 times as effective in preventing hospitalization and 3.3 to 4.7 times as effective in preventing COVID infection compared with vaccination. I've not got an ideological axe to grind. What we're doing on this channel is giving you the information so you can make a decision and perhaps observe other motivations and factors that might be in play. Joe Biden has announced the pandemic is over. Big pharma profits are dropping. New suggestions are being made about booster shots, and you have to consider for yourselves, are the motivations your benefit or their benefit? You can decide that. Let us know in the comments below who you think is at the core of the modus operandi of these organisations. Researchers studying next generation vaccines are running into problems getting existing vaccines to use their research. Because Pfizer and Moderna hold the patents for current vaccines, researchers need companies' permission to use them for research. Right now, Pfizer isn't sharing its vaccines for research purposes. Pfizer's stance is legal and in line with the company's commercial interests, said Anna Santos-Rushman, a professor of law at Villanova University. So what you have to deduce is, are Pfizer more interested in the maintenance of their own ascending profits or in your well-being and preventing potential future pandemics? If you use this thing that has been patented, what you're doing doesn't matter. Even if you're trying to cure cancer, the law is pretty rigid, she said. This isn't an anti-vaccine rant. Neither is it an anti-commerce rant. What this is an interesting observation. If at the core of medicinal practice is the preservation of patents in order to maximize profits, then how many times do you think that negatively biases outcomes in the field of medicine? How often do you think these companies are protecting their interests? How often do you think potential cures are prevented from releasing market because of financial reasons? And if we build a culture, a society and systems around that kind of ideology, how many tangential effects do you imagine that has? What do you think should be at the core of medicine? What do you think should be at the core of healthcare? It's pretty obvious it should be the well-being of individuals and populations, isn't it? Now, I'm not suggesting to you that we have some state-centered communist socialist model where a centralized authority distributes medicines and determines decisions, but you do have to recognize that there is a warped ideology operating at the heart of our culture. You have to observe it. A Pfizer spokesperson also said the company has its own extensive studies of the vaccine underway and will continue to share information from those studies as it becomes available. And if it happens to take 75 years, which is what they're mandated to do, then it will be 75 years. Oh, you think that we would retain that information till it was profitable? Well, we were actually keeping that information back for 3/4 of a century because it pertains to a bicentenary celebration for your birthday, and you've spoiled it. You're just like your father. It's certainly very complex to understand the balance between necessary medicines, a lack of hysteria when discerning and identifying legitimate medical problems that seem to be at odds with corporate objectives and financial aims. Luckily, though, we've got Bill Gates.
Then the second time I saw him was the March after that, so March 2017 in the White House. In both of those two meetings, he asked me if vaccines weren't a bad thing, because he was considering a commission to look into ill effects of vaccines, and somebody, his name is Robert Kennedy Jr., was advising him that vaccines were causing bad things. And I said, no, that's a dead end. That would be a bad thing. Don't do that.
Curious to note that Bill Gates has always had an interest in vaccines. We know he's interested in agriculture. We know he's interested in patenting seeds. We know he's interested in vaccines and their patents. You know, for someone who believes that these things should be ubiquitously available, that philanthropy stopped at the continent of Africa. So perhaps Bill Gates is a person whose perspective is similarly warped by financial and corporate objectives, as well as his much celebrated, foregrounded philanthropy. As you know, I don't have strong opinions on what you should do for your family or what you should do for your children or what the motivations of the pharmaceutical industry is or whether or not you can rely on Joe Biden or the Washington political system more broadly. What I want you to do is discern truth for yourself with us. We require your conscious awareness in order for us to grow. That is in fact why we are moving now to Rumble, so we can dive deeper into these subjects, so we can have a wide and diverse range of guests that will do their best to inform us of the truth as they understand it, while recognizing that objective truth is a very difficult place to arrive at. We will be continuing to make this fantastic content. These videos will be on YouTube every single day. But if you want to watch them live, if you want to see more content, deeper interviews, more fun, and if you want to interact with us, then join us from next Wednesday on Rumble, 5 p.m. if you're in the UK, 9 a.m. if you're in LA, New York, midday, Sydney, 2 a.m. Get yourself up in the morning, think about what you've been doing over there in Australia. You shouldn't even be asleep after what you've done. So every single day, you can hit us up with your comments, your inquiries, your questions, because we need you in order to continue growing. We want to build this movement. We want to connect to you as deeply as we possibly can. We want to explore the truth as thoroughly as we can, and we're going to be able to do it now on Rumble. So we're going to go quiet for a couple of days. We're not going to put content out, but from next Wednesday, we'll be here on YouTube. You can watch us here as always, but why wouldn't you join us on Rumble live? Participate. Join us on this road to truth and freedom with all of its glory and complexity. More important than any of that, please stay free.